Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on the Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. And as we know, we are gathered here to keep the holy day of trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets, which Yahweh has set forth for us to do. And since this is a Sabbath, we are going to read our oracles. It is a day of rest, so we are not supposed to have any servile work done, which is work that you are paid for as we go forward on this day. Now, as we keep these holy days, it's you'll find that different congregations have things on different days, and what it's all about is when they decide to deal with when the new moon shows up. A lot of times that new moon, the alignment, which is earth, moon, and sun in alignment, that is what the new moon is. Sometimes that arrives at about 2 or 3 a.m. Some people will still go ahead and keep that day before, saying that, you know, basically it will come in that same day. But we do not observe the new moon before the alignment. So, brother, would you read the oracles and entreat the angel that stands at the door, that we may sup with him and him with us, and that we may make this a holy convocation by the angel's presence.
1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as dear children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth. Therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions.
Now, that right there is the very reason why we have to do things as close to as it is written as we possibly can. Because these are spiritual things. As Yahweh has stated, behold, I have set an angel before you to lead you in the way. Well, that angel is following his instructions, and we need to make sure that we don't get in that angel's way. So there are some things that we have to make sure that we observe and that we do, so that we don't cause that angel to have to do something to us, because the angel is not going to go back to Yahweh with an excuse. The angel doesn't have an excuse as, well, I couldn't do my job because. There ain't no I couldn't do my job because. If you get in that angel way, he's going to move you out of his way. Go ahead.
For my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right. Now, as we gather tonight to keep the Feast of Trumpets, there is a lot of misunderstanding about this feast, as people think that this is just a feast about a horn. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, because right now the Jewish people are keeping a holy day called Rosh Hashanah, and they say that it's the same thing. But I want to read to you some things that are written about Rosh Hashanah. It is at the same time, as you start doing some things, they'll say, and it's trumpets. So at some place, trumpets is thrown in there, but you'll find that it's kind of a back thing. This is, and I went to several places to make sure that I was finding the same writing about this Rosh Hashanah. It says the festival of Rosh Hashanah. First of all, Yahweh has holy days. All right. The festival of Rosh Hashanah, the name means head of the year, is observed for 2 days beginning on the first day of Tashlich, which is supposed to be the name of this month. We know that Yahweh has given us one name, and that was Abib for months. All the other months were given numbers. All right. But as our people began to be captive, you'll find that as we began to be amongst those other nations, we picked up other things from those other nations. The first day of the Jewish year. Now, there are some things we're going to come back and deal with. So they are calling this Rosh Hashanah the Jewish New Year, because the way they deal with things, it's given 2 years, basically the agricultural year and then the civil year. But I'm going to show you the issue with that, because one is supposed to be ending as the other one is starting. So this is supposed to be the first day of the Jewish year. It is the anniversary of the creation of Adam and Eve. Now, how they get to that, not quite sure. The first man and woman and their first actions toward the realization of mankind's role in God's world. Rosh Hashanah thus emphasizing, according as what they're keeping, this special relationship between God and humanity, the dependence upon God as creator and sustainer, and God's dependence upon us as the ones who makes his presence known and felt in his world. Each year on Rosh Hashanah, all inhabitants of the world pass before God like a flock of sheep, and it is decreed in the heavenly court who shall live and who shall die, who shall be impoverished and who shall be enriched, who shall fall and who shall rise. But this is also the day we proclaim God King of the universe. Now, listen here. The Kabbalists, see, there are other books. You have to understand that the Jew-like people have other books that direct what they do. The Kabbalists teach that the continued existence of the universe is dependent upon the renewal of the divine desire for a world when we accept God's kingship each year on Rosh Hashanah. The central observance of Rosh Hashanah is the sounding of the shofar. Now, you see how far you have to read to get into it before you get to the trumpet, which is what the shofar is. So there's a whole lot of other stuff, and then the backdrop is then the shofar. Now, it says the central observance of Rosh Hashanah is the sounding of the shofar, the ram's horn, which also represents the trumpet blast of a people's coronation of their king. So now, instead of it being a day of trumpets, it is a day of Rosh Hashanah, and the trumpet is the symbol of it. So there's a reason why, because a lot of people study what the Jewish people do, and then they end up asking us, so you kept Rosh Hashanah? No, you didn't keep Rosh Hashanah, and you're not here to keep Rosh Hashanah. You're going to keep the Feast of Trumpets. That's what Yahweh has decreed. So you need to be able to differentiate when people come to you about Rosh Hashanah and what that means and what they're keeping, because that's not what you're here to do. All right? The cry of the shofar is also a call to repentance, for Rosh Hashanah is also the anniversary of man's first sin and his repentance thereof. Now, how would anybody know that, first of all? And serve as the first of the 10 days of repentance, which culminate in Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. Another significance of the shofar is to recall the binding of Isaac, which also occurred on Rosh Hashanah. So now they're saying that they know exactly when Isaac was tied up, and it was Rosh Hashanah as well, in which a ram took Isaac's place as an offering to God. We evoke Abraham's readiness to sacrifice his son and plead that the merit of his deed should stand by us as we pray for a year of life, health, and prosperity. Sounds like a lot of other New Year's resolutions and things that we've heard before. All together, we listened to 100 shofar blasts over the course of the Rosh Hashanah services. Additional Rosh Hashanah observances include eating a piece of apple dipped in honey to symbolize the desire for a sweet year. Now, if you go back to some of those things that our mamas celebrate, they had special food that they had on New Year. It's called chitterlings. Y'all call them chitlins. They didn't come out until the new year. So you start to see how all of this stuff has been blended in. But when we read this book, we don't find any special food for a sweet new year. Blessing one another with the words Leshanah, tovah, blah, 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 blah. Now, you're going to find a lot. There's a lot of certain things that are kind of ritualistic prayers, ritualistic sayings, and all of these things. So, and this one of the other things I want to read here, it says Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day celebration which begins the first day of Tishri, which is the first month of the Jewish civil year, but the 7th month of the ecclesiastical year. Now, ecclesiastical, anytime you're dealing with ecclesiastical things, this means the biblical, the holy part. So, you notice which ones comes first. They mention the civil year, then they mention the ecclesiastical year, which this is the 7th month. Okay? They're keeping this then as the new year. So, you need to understand what's going on. Let's begin in Exodus chapter 12. See, we give a lot of people a lot of credit because they have a lot of pomp and circumstance, and they may have television behind them, and they may have some big money followers, and that really intrigues us. I mean, we are intrigued by whoever looks like they have lots of money behind them. There are some of us that we won't even go to a place if it doesn't look well to do. Some people look at the cars in the parking lot. If the cars in the parking lot are not up to a certain status, they say, oh no, I'm not going in that. They ain't but one BMW in that parking lot. Right? We're going to read Exodus chapter 12, and let's read verses 1 through 6.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
The first month of the year to you. Now, do you read anything about a civil year and an ecclesiastical year? See, the way when you start reading these things, Yahweh has broken down, and I understand why it gives the impression that some of this is okay, because you'll find that when it says years in, nothing else happens until the holy days start back over. But that's a several month period. So at some point they have instituted basically 2 new years. So they have 2 years going at the same time, the civil year and then the ecclesiastical year. And the reason they call it the ecclesiastical year is basically we are at the 7th month. So we are about to go through the last set of holy days. But the part I want to make to you is this is the 7th, but they are already calling this then the first of the civil year. So I want to show you the part that's really foul with that. Keep going.
Verse 3. Speak you unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
So even if we don't read anything else, we're talking about, it says, this shall be the first month of the year to you. Then it starts talking about taking the lamb. We automatically know then this month that they're talking about is Passover, in the same month that Passover is in. So this is your first month. Yet they have another first month that they're calling today. Now, this book says the beginning of your months shall be when you are keeping Passover. How are they calling this the first month? Go ahead.
And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
So we know that this is dealing with this Passover, which is when this first month is. So let's go to Exodus chapter 13, and let's read verses 1 through 6.
Exodus 13 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine. And Moshe said unto the people, Remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand Yahweh brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came you out in the month Abib.
This day came you out in the month Abib. So that Passover happens in the month of Abib. That is the first month of the year to you. They call it here April Fools. So the people who kept the biblical New Year was called April Fools. But now you have something else going on. Go ahead.
And it shall be when Yahweh shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, which he sware unto your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a feast to Yahweh.
Now, the key there is the references of this 7th day. Now I'm going to bring something back to you. What we read earlier, it says the festival of Rosh Hashanah, the name means head of the year. So you don't find any of the holy days in Leviticus 23 called Rosh Hashanah. You don't find anything in Leviticus 23 called head of the year. So this is saying that this is the beginning of the year. Yet when we read what's written in this book, Yahweh says Abib is the beginning of your year, according to what's written in the Torah. Okay? So, and of course we then have this name of Tishri, which is not a name that Yahweh has given as well. But the key thing you have to kind of see is the way that this thing is twisted around. Let's go to Exodus chapter 23. Because see, it's hard sometimes to get the understanding of what it is that you're supposed to be doing when you turn on the television or you go on the computer and you start to see all of these other things. And you know, these places have really fine edifices. They have really nice buildings. So what'll end up happening is, if you're not secure in what it is that you're learning, you'll let them cause you to second guess what you are doing. That's what it'll do. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, when I was going to the Leshanah, they could never explain to me how it was beginning of the year if this was the 7th month.
Right.
It just didn't make sense. It just don't make sense.
No. It can't be the beginning of the year and be the 7th month. But I tell you what, knowing that Lucifer is full of trickery, if I tell you the beginning is the ending and the ending is the beginning, then I got you upside down, don't I? But hold on. One more step. They had us worshiping on Sunday. They told us it was the Sabbath. It was the what? First day. Oh. Yahweh said worship on the 7th day. So they're not one day off. They're completely opposite. What is he giving us here? Completely opposite. Lucifer, boy. He's slick. Hey, he's slick as snake oil, boy. He is slick. Boy, he's slick. Right. Let's verse 14 through 16.
Exodus chapter 23.
I'm sorry. Oh, this. Talking about this one or this one? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Exodus chapter 23 and verse 14. 3 times you shall keep a feast unto me in the year. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it you came out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty.
Just in case you didn't get the other reference, here it is again. Go ahead.
And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you have sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year.
The feast of ingathering is in the end of the year, the 7th month. So, if you don't get the correlation, Yahweh has all of these things based on 7. He then has the end of your year. And this is why people end up separating it with this ecclesiastical year. The bottom line is, Yahweh doesn't have any more holy days until the year starts again. But they need to put something in that empty space. See? So then they have a different year. The bottom line is, Yahweh has holy days dealing with those first 7 months. Then he has the 7th holy day in the 7th month. And he says the Feast of Ingathering, which is also called Tabernacles, is at year's end. Did you finish that?
When you have gathered in your labors out of the field.
All right. Now let's go to Exodus chapter 34. Go ahead, bro.
And all that is the end of your agricultural year.
Right. It's all his holy days are based around agriculture. So why you gonna make another year? Then that's a year for you or whatever. Yahweh, see, the reason why none of that means anything to us, because we got Walmart down the street. So you don't care nothing about growing food. But I tell you what, you get out in the country and ain't no Walmart. I guarantee you, you will care about the seasons that things grow. So this is the time that Yahweh is dealing with his people. After that, we can see right now. We gathered here today. It is one of the coolest days. It's the first cool day we've had. Mm-hmm. Right. This is the end of gathering all of the crops. Exodus 34, and let's read verses 19 through 22.
Verse 19. All that openeth the matrix is mine.
The matrix is the womb. That's what the whole movie was about. They were making people and using their energy in the movie The Matrix. Go ahead.
And every firstling among your cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male, but the firstling of an ass you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you redeem him not, then shall you break his neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh day you shall rest. In airing time and in harvest you shall rest.
Okay, so even when he's going through these days, just out of nowhere, he'll go back and deal with the Sabbath. Go ahead.
And you shall observe the Feast of Weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the year's end.
All right. Once again, the Feast of Ingathering, the Feast of Tabernacles, which is what we will keep within this 7th month. So this is the beginning of the 7th month, and we're going to keep the last of the holy days in this month. So this is what the Bible says is year end. According to the Jewish people, they have this being the beginning of the year. So you have to then consider, where is this coming from? Because it's not coming out of the Torah. It's not coming out of the first 5 books of Moshe. Where is this stuff coming from? Consider all of the things that we read. You got, sweet apples, and you got all this kind of stuff. We don't read any of that in the book. So we have to consider these things as we read. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23. Go ahead, bro.
In the last part it says in airing time and in harvest. Airing time is during that time when you're plowing up the land and preparing your land to get ready to start sowing. So that will be your other months when there is no sowing and harvesting going on.
I'm going to take your word for it. I go to Walmart. All right. I want to read something else. It says this month, Tishri, was not only anciently, but still is reckoned by the Jews as the first month of the year. So right now, they are keeping the first month of the year. According to Yahweh, it is the last of the year. Now, what happens is, because we deal with this, the rotation around the sun, it will not be springtime again. And then when that springtime comes back in, then you start up with your Passover. But being that there's nothing else going on within that time, man has set up something else with this civil year. It says it's not only ancient with them, but still is reckoned by the Jewish as the first month of the year. And the Feast of Tabernacles kept in this month was said to be rendered in the margin as the revolution of the year. Now, they are then correlating the end and the beginning as the same place. Now, I'm going to just show you how crazy that is. They're counting to 7. Now, if you ever thought about the people who end up keeping those moving Sabbaths, they had that funny math, So what they have here is they're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. What? Because see, for you to start over, you go to 7, then the 8th, would be number 1. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. Huh? That's what they're doing with this whole so-called revolution thing here. Leviticus chapter 23.
We're starting verse 1.
Actually, Leviticus 23 and 23.
Okay.
Leviticus 23 and 23.
Verse 23. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation.
Right, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. Go ahead.
You shall do no servile work therein, but you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh.
Right. Now, he said in the 7th month, when you are reading any of these things concerning the holy days, you will notice that when you are reading the things of the month, you're going to see one month that has a name, and that's Abib. You will not see any other name in the Torah. Go ahead.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Also on the 10th day of this 7th month there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be an holy convocation unto you, and you shall afflict your souls, and offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. And you shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before Yahweh your Elohim. For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people.
Right. So before, there are certain days where we cannot do any servile work. When it comes down to atonement, you may not do any work. Go ahead.
You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings.
And you see, Yahweh is pretty thorough. After he says one thing, he turns around and he says it again. Why? Because he know he's dealing with Israel. Because we try to find loopholes. Go ahead.
It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict your souls. In the 9th day of the month at even, from even unto even, shall you celebrate your Sabbath.
It's very clear. The day begins at even. So the 9th day at even is the 10th. And you go to the next day at even when the new day begins. So you have then done a complete day. Go ahead.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahweh.
Understand now, people then call this the high holy days. This is the some very holy days that are in this 7th month. Go ahead.
On the 1st day shall be an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you, and you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh.
Now, you see how it says you must keep a feast 7 days? And then it says the first day is the Sabbath, and then it says this last day was the Sabbath. But you see it says on the 8th day. So 7 can't be 7 and 1 too. Go ahead.
It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no servile work therein. These are the feasts of Yahweh which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh, a burnt offering, and a meat offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon his day. Besides the Sabbaths of Yahweh, and besides your gifts, and beside all your vows, and beside all your freewill offerings, which you give unto Yahweh.
All right. So we see then that Yahweh was very clear about what days and what things are important unto him. Now, when we read this, as far as the writing and the definition of this Rosh Hashanah, remember, it means head of the year. It does not mean trumpets. So It cannot even be merely thought of that it is the same thing. Now, what is going to happen tonight, though, is, as we read, there's going to be 100 blasts of the shofar. So that will be what you'll remember if you were keeping an event like that. You'll remember that a whole bunch of people will be blowing shofars. Now, the thing is, how we end up getting dealt with imagery is, I read several places and it's saying shofar of ram's horn. I will give people credit for that. It said ram horn. Now here's the issue. It was saying ram's horn, but it would be showing the kadut. That's where the slickness comes in. Now, think about how you learned anything as a child. As a child, you didn't learn how to spell ball or spell door first. You learned it by what the people said it is. They said, these are glasses. So the kid says, glasses. So if I then hold this up and I say, door. Then what you think the kid door? Then the kid gonna go out about half crazy. Yeah, I want a door. They be like, what, this is about the craziest little boy? But they learn by what you associate. So if you keep going on the internet and they show you this kadut, this long horn, and they keep saying ram's horn, then that is what your brain then associates what a ram's horn is. So then you think, as they're dealing with these trumpets, that they are dealing with the right shofar. So there's going to be a whole lot of things, especially done in this Feast of Trumpets, and it's going to be the wrong horn used, because we know that a kadut is a wild animal that cannot be offered upon Yahweh's altar, and there are no atonement properties in it. The ram, of course, represents Yahshua. Let's go to Numbers chapter 10.
Numbers chapter 10 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Make you 2 trumpets of silver. Of a whole piece shall you make them, that you may use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps.
All right, now these are holy things. Everybody don't get to touch this stuff here. This is made out of a whole piece of silver. These are, the priests are going to deal with these things here. Go ahead.
And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to you at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation.
All right.
And if they blow but with 1 trumpet, then the princes, which are heads of the thousands of Israel, shall gather themselves unto you.
Right. So then this trumpet, then instead of just making a noise, we understand that these trumpet blasts are instructions for the children of Israel. So they move when they hear the trumpet. Go ahead.
When you blow an alarm, then the camps that lie on the east part shall go forward. When you blow an alarm the second time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall take their journey. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys. But when the congregation is to be gathered together, you shall blow, but you shall not sound an alarm. And the sons of Aaron, the priests, shall blow with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for an ordinance forever throughout your generations. And if you go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresseth you, then you shall blow an alarm with the trumpets, and you shall be remembered before Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall be saved from your enemies. Also in the day of your gladness.
Also in the day of your gladness. So now there's the gathering of the children of Israel. There's the moving of the children of Israel. There is, if you go to war, you blow with an alarm. Then also in the day of your gladness. So this is the last piece. Go ahead.
Also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before Yahweh, before your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim.
Now, we have to consider what all we have written here about the shofar, the trumpet. And I'm going to reiterate this thing that was written here. It says the central observance of Rosh Hashanah is the sounding of the shofar. So now the shofar is a backdrop to what's supposed to be going on. It is the focal point, according to Yahweh. It is not a backdrop. It's not something that is connected to something else. The movement of the children of Israel is connected to this trumpet. Now, what you're going to see as we read is why the trumpet is connected with the movement of the children of Israel. Let's go to Numbers chapter 29. Numbers chapter 29, and let's read verses 1 through 6. Now stop me if y'all get to anywhere where you get to the anniversary of Adam and Eve and they sinned and anything like that. Stop me if you get, because maybe I missed it. If I missed it, y'all point it out if we go past it, because I don't even see how anybody would know that. But anyhow, if we pass it, y'all stop me. Go ahead.
Numbers chapter 29 and verse 1. And in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. It is a day of blowing the trumpets unto you. And you shall offer a burnt offering for a sweet savor unto Yahweh, 1 bullock, 1 ram, and 7 lambs of the first year without blemish.
Right, and you see when you're talking about making these offerings, you're going to find a ram constantly. You will never find a kadu. Go ahead.
And their meat offering shall be of flour mingled with oil, 3/10 deals for a bullock, and 2/10 deals for a ram, and 1/10 deal for 1 lamb throughout the 7 lambs, and 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, to make an atonement for you. Beside the burnt offering of the month, and his meat offering, and the daily burnt offering, and his meat offering, and their drink offerings, according unto their manner, for a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto Yahweh.
Okay, let's go now to Genesis chapter 2. See, we have to see this correlation to this this 7th month, and why he has basically the holiest days in this month. We have holy days, but we have the holiest days in that 7th month. That Day of Atonement is man being put in the right place with Yahweh. That is a very holy day. When you deal with this tabernacles at year's end, we're also dealing with this the spiritual aspect of that is that sabbatical kingdom. Genesis chapter 2, and let's read verses 1 through 3.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day Elohim ended his work which he had made. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the 7th day, and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which Elohim had created and made.
Okay, so the Sabbath is the first thing that was blessed and sanctified. So you then find that this is the basis for everything else. So as we look at what man has given us, this is the beginning And Yahweh said it's the ending. The ending is sanctified. It is set apart. So, and the beginning of this 7th month, this holy number of completion, Yahweh then orders us to have a rest on the beginning of the 7th month. Yet other people tell you that it is the beginning of their year. So you have to see how slick the adversary is. Let's go to Isaiah 11. So you then have these 7 days of creation. Now let's read Isaiah 11, and let's read verses 1 and 2.
And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of Yahweh shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of Yahweh.
Right, and if you count those are 7. So those are the 7 spirits, and Yahweh had, Yahshua, had all of those. And one of those things is what I was just mentioning a couple days ago, the spirit of counsel. When Yahweh has servants, they have the spirit of counsel. But what we like to do is go talk to our friends, and so we can get somebody to just agree with us. So we have the 7 days in creation. We got these 7 spirits. Now let's go to Revelation chapter 1. So the point you should start to get here is that this is being set on the other side of town as the beginning, and the blessing part of this is the ending. You see the difference of Yahweh setting this 7 number. This is when he rested. He blessed and sanctified this Sabbath day. Then you see how he then set everything else according to it. Revelation chapter 1, and let's read verses 8 through 20.
I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, saith the Adonai, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. I, Yohanan, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation, and in the kingdom and patience of Yahshua the Mashiach, was in the isle that is called Patmos, for the word of Elohim, and for the testimony of Yahshua the Mashiach. I was in the Spirit on the Adonai's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, and what you seeth write in a book.
Okay, now this holy voice was a voice as of a trumpet. See, people want to tell you the trumpet is the backdrop for Rosh Hashanah. No, that's not what the trumpet is. Go ahead.
And send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea.
Right.
And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks.
So after you end up hearing the trumpet, the voice that sounds as a trumpet, then you turn around and see 7 golden candlesticks. The beginning of this holy day is the beginning of the 7th month, not the beginning of the 1st. Go ahead.
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle.
Right. Somebody once said, man, I like that stuff y'all teaching, man, but why you gotta be dressed like that? Why don't you wear a suit or something? Right. When you look at holiness, he was clothed with a garment down to the foot. Okay? And girt about the paps with a golden girdle. Go ahead.
His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. I am he that liveth, and was dead. And, behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. Write the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. The mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which you saw are the 7 churches.
Are the 7 churches. So once again, we got all of these things based on this 7, but what somebody else is telling you that this is to be worshipped as the first and not this holy number of 7. See, they tell you, okay, this is the first of the civil year, and later on, and by the way, it's the 7th of the ecclesiastical year. But if you God's holy people, the only one that should matter is the ecclesiastical part then, right? Because that's the part that... Right. Right. Let's go to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, and let's read verses 29 through 31.
Verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
Now, in the beginning, it was the blowing of the trumpet that caused Israel to be gathered. Okay, he's blowing, then the angel blows this trump, or they blow the trump, and then the angels gather the elect. Once again, Israel is being gathered by the sound of the trumpet. Go ahead.
That was it.
That's it on that one? Okay, let's go to Exodus 19. So people want to tell you that they don't understand any significance about what this Feast of Trumpets is. Oh, it's just about blowing a horn and making a lot of noise, making a joyful noise unto Yahweh. But you see, basically what's happening, this is about the regathering of the children of Israel, because Israel is regathered by the blowing of the shofar, the blowing of this trumpet. But if you are an imposter in somebody else's land, the last thing you want is to celebrate the gathering of the real people whose house it is. Then the last people you want to see come home. If you done took over somebody else, if you done squatted, because the people went on a journey and you saw their house was empty, and you went and parked in their house, the last thing you want to celebrate is the day that they come home. Because first thing they going to say, what you doing in my living room? Get out. You ain't celebrating that. Right. So you got to make another day. See, you got to make another celebration. Right. Exodus chapter 19. And let's read verses 17 through 20.
Verse 17. And Moshe brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with Elohim. And they stood at the nether part of the mount. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because Yahweh descended upon it in fire.
Uh-huh.
And the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly.
So Yahweh is on the presence of this mountain. Go ahead.
And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long, and waxed louder and louder, Moshe spake, and Elohim answered him by a voice.
So then you have, remember, when he turned and he heard this voice as of a trumpet, so you have this thing in the heavens. Now you still hear this trumpet when Yahweh is speaking to the people. Go ahead.
And Yahweh came down upon Mount Sinai, on the top of Mount Sinai, and Yahweh called Moshe up to the top of the mount, and Moshe went up.
All right, jump to 20 and verse 1.
And Elohim spake all these words, saying,
All right, now jump to verse 18.
And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet.
Now this is after Yahweh has given all these commandments. He's talking and all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet. Go ahead.
And the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moshe, Speak you with us, and we will hear. But let not Elohim speak with us, lest we die.
So all of this was in Elohim's voice. Go ahead.
And Moshe said unto the people, Fear not, for Elohim is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not.
So understand something. The trumpet is not a symbol of Rosh Hashanah. The trumpet is a part of Yahweh's voice. Why do you think we move when they blow it? Why do you think we do this? We're obeying the voice of Yahweh. You blow the shofar, they move. You blow the shofar again, these move. You sound with an alarm, these move. And when you hear this voice, there's a trumpet there at the same time with the thunderings and the lightnings. You hear that trumpet. So this is just not some day that we are gathering. This trumpet is this movement of Yahweh. Everything is based on 7, the day he rested. So understand that if anybody else asks you, what was this Feast of Trumpets that you have kept? Now you have an answer to tell them. That's all that we're going to do for tonight. Enjoy your feast. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.